Here I sketched out a tube of paint. Again, I'm not so concerned about finding that perfect reference like I mentioned. This is a sketchbook. So you want to spend your time painting and drawing as opposed to looking for that perfect picture to paint. And it's all white in here except for the shadows. So I'm going to, and it's crumpled up quite a bit. It's not real smooth. So I'm going to play around in that area first with some ultramarine blue and a touch of Payne's. Before I put any of these darks on here, I want to get the lighter values in first, otherwise they're going to smear. And the highlight sort of runs through the middle. And I'll go down to the very bottom here too. Also, it has a lot of action going on. It comes from the corners, kind of fills that area up. Now, this is the shadow side, so I'm going to go a little darker here while these other areas are wet, so it'll bleed up into it. Especially right here where it curves down to where it's crimped right there. It's a pretty dark shadow right in there. And then just a little thickness to that edge. So there's my light values. Also, we've got the metal that shows up here. Now, I did this sketch real quick. My concern wasn't so much the sketch in this case. It was a quick drawing so that I could show you the painting part of it. Again, I'm looking at values. I'm looking at where some of these shapes are. It's starting to soak in so I can get this variation in here without having hard edges. Again, right here, it's a lot darker. I'm not going to finesse this painting too much. I want to just kind of get in and out real quick. Like I say, it's a sketch. So I'm going to lay it in pretty quick. I won't refine it very much. I'm going to dry it right now. It's not completely dry, but it's dry enough. I'm going to get into my cadmium orange with some gamboge in it to get that orangish color. And that's pretty close already. So that's cadmium orange and gamboge. All right, let's lay these shapes in. And there's that highlight that runs through here, and it also runs into these orange areas. So I'm gonna make sure I leave some white right in there. Now that's just a flat color, but now we need to give it some, vary the values a little bit. So I'm gonna go a little stronger orange. Now if I wanna gray it down, a great way to gray down orange is to use the complement. And that's another way to learn your colors and your complements. The complement of that would be the blues. So that's what I'm using right there. I'm using cadmium orange and a little bit of ultramarine blue. And always have a test sheet ready. Test it on your sheet. I'm not going to do much in the way of blending. A lot of times I'll go in here and I'll soften the edges. But I think I'd like to have this look more sketchy. You'll find out that things dry quite a bit lighter with watercolor. So I'm coming in here again with some more Payne's gray, a little bit of ultra, mostly Payne's gray. And just pushing these values, because there is sort of a mottled effect in these gray areas. It's not just one flat gray. There's little shapes in there. Put some more ultramarine blue in here. It's really got that metal, has a very bluish cast to it. So this highlight that runs through here also runs up into the colors, the oranges, and it also runs up into the actual cap itself. So let's put this cap in here. Again, I could go to a smaller brush to get that rounded corner that I need. I'm just going to stick with this brush. I'm playing with values. And as I say that, I kind of lose that location of that reflection. So I'm just going to take a damp brush, a paper towel, and move this up to here a little farther. I'm wiping my brush on my paper towel between pulling out color here. All right, I'm going to go stronger Payne's gray. Let's just go up to this part right now. The actual cap, top of the cap. If I feel like this brush isn't giving me what I need as far as control or the delicate thin lines, I'm going to switch to my script brush. It's got a finer point. It doesn't hold as much paint, obviously, but you can get nice delicate lines with it. So I need to round off this radius right here. And on the bottom portion of it, let's see, let's get this in. The thickness of the cap is a little darker. So I'm just going to pull that shape in. And this kind of disappears in here too. Okay, while that's drying, let's go on to some other areas. Well, I'm not going to try to do all that lettering. I'm locating the shapes, the basic shapes. And what you're doing is you're sketching with a brush, and that's all good practice. There's a tripod here. There's a person standing here. Looks like they might have a backpack on. There's some lettering that goes across here. Title of the paint, which is quinacridone gold. But sometimes this looks better than trying to write out these words and not get them to look right, because then people will pick at it. But if they see that it's just a casual, suggestive approach to it, they aren't going to be as critical about it. Okay, so I'm going to take my brush, damp brush, and pull out this highlight that's going to continue into the cap up here. Let's pull this out. A little bit lighter than that. I'm going to use my script brush and go straight Payne's gray. Using Payne's gray as my black. And just kind of put this ribbing in here. And I'm going to take some ultramarine blue and throw the shadow on. So I've kind of located it. Now I can decide if I want to make it darker or not. And I think I will. As long as this is wet, I can keep playing with it and not have any strange shapes creep into it. Again, the shadow's darkest right next to the object. So this would be the darkest shadow, would be right in here. That's one way to practice. This is a great to take subjects around your studio, or things are sitting around, and just practice drawing them. Spend your time drawing and painting, not looking for a reference. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks.